All right, welcome everybody to our International Women's Day panel discussion. My name is Jeanette Dielman. I am the social media and digital marketing specialist here at Synopsys Software Integrity Group. We have Laurie Carr with us co-hosting. She is our blog managing editor. We also have as our panel guests, Meera Rao, Senior Director of Product Management, and Anita D'Amico, Vice President of Products. So welcome, ladies. And we are going to get into a little bit of just about how we can celebrate International Women's Day, breaking the bias, and creating a more inclusive work culture here at Synopsys and beyond. So Meera and Anita, thank you both for being here today. And let's get into, I guess, our first question. So I'll start with you, Meera. Can you tell us a little bit about your role here at Synopsys and just overall about yourself and what got you into the tech space?
Sure. So like you mentioned, my name is Meera Rao. I have been working with Synopsys now. This is my 14th year. So getting into this software security industry was by chance, right? Like in 2008, when the economy was going down, the previous company I was working just collapsed. And then someone just referred me to Cigital, which was acquired by Synopsys. The reason I tell this story is for women to look at me and say, if Meera can be in the cybersecurity industry, I can do it myself, right? I can also do it. So I didn't know anything about cybersecurity. I had done a lot of work on software development. So I was a lead architect. I knew a lot about applications, how they are built, technologies, architecture. So I was asked to join. And then I was like, yeah, until I get some other job, I can be part of this company, right? And then in the beginning, I never felt like, I think like one of the themes for this year for International Women's Day, break the bias. For me, the goal for me was to get better every single day, prove them wrong, because everyone was like, hey, she comes from a development background. How can she even succeed in the cybersecurity industry? So for me, I think those two things, get better every single day in the technology that I didn't know nothing about, and then prove everyone wrong. I think those are the two things which got me. So it was like, hey, I'm going to stay for 2 years. I'm going to stay for 3 years, 4 years. And then slowly 3, 4 became now 14 years, right? So now I work as a senior director focusing on DevOps solutions. The world is about DevOps, working with different products, working with different customers across different industries, and helping them achieve or build that culture of DevSecOps.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing that. And now I'm going to pass it over to Anita and just ask the same question. If you can tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're doing with Synopsys today.
Sure. Well, thanks for inviting me to participate in this important event. My role at Synopsys now is to be the vice president of the products organization, which means that my organization is responsible for product management, R&D, and engineering within the Software Integrity Group. I've been at Synopsys for a little over 8 months. I came in as part of an acquisition. Prior to that, I was the CEO of a startup in software security. My background is a bit different than most other people in this role. I have a PhD in experimental psychology, and it doesn't have a lot to do with software security, but in fact, my entire career arc has been related to technology. I have worked in all aspects of technology. I've worked in the merchant marine, in manned space, in digital cartography, I started the first information warfare team at Northrop Grumman. I've worked in surveillance aircraft, and I always seem to be working on the interface between engineering and human factors. And so even though I wasn't trained in any of those areas, I have risen in my career to work in all of those areas. And I think that one of the reasons for that is that throughout my career, despite the fact that it was very difficult for women, there were a few men who were my bosses during that time that saw something in me that said, you know what, I think that you could head up our command control, communications, and intelligence research. Why don't you try it? And I would. And then somebody would say, you know, I think that you could really head up information warfare. Why don't you try it? And I did. So I think it was, my career arc has been all about technology, but it's been rather opportunistic. I didn't have a single goal as I went through my career. Instead, I hopped through different things and it got me to where I am now.
Thank you so much for both of those introductions. That was great. So let's get into talking a little bit more focused on International Women's Month and what it means to each of you. So again, Anita, I'm going to have just pass the ball back to you. What does International Women's Month mean to you?
Well, International Women's Day and Month is an opportunity for women and men to celebrate the economic, the cultural, technical, and political contributions of women in our world. It's also an opportunity to raise awareness that bias still exists in business, politics, and society. And while it's certainly better than when I was starting my career, it still exists. And so we should raise awareness about it.
Absolutely. And then Meera, I'm going to pass the same question back to you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I think I echo everything that Anita mentioned about raising the awareness. One of the key things that I see, especially whether it is International Women's Day or Women's Month, is to actually talk about all of these with men around me, right? So it all starts from home for me. So whether it is talking to my friends, talking to my relatives, talking to my own husband about, hey, it's about breaking bias. Again, he has very two strong women in his life. We wouldn't allow him to do anything, right? Like, so the thing is, for me, it is all that happens from home, right? Like I had a father who was very supportive of what we wanted to do. So we have, for each and every woman and man, we have so many role models within our own lives, right? Rather than looking at someone else outside, look at all of the things, challenges that your grandmother or your mother or your sister went through, or your cousin sister went through during their life, how they achieved success, right? It doesn't have to be in the industry that we are. So for me, I think whether it is posting something on Twitter or on LinkedIn or in my own blog, is to talk about all of those powerful role models who didn't have that opportunity, but then still strived to get to that next level, right? And then talking about them with the future generation, right? Whether it is my daughter or my nieces or my nephews, hey, this is what this person did, right? So raising that awareness, not just on this 1 month, but throughout the year. But then I think the focus will definitely be on that 1 month where we talk about them, we celebrate them, and then we share the stories, right? So I think it's very important that celebrating that and then bringing in not just women, but then also men along with us to raise that awareness.
Right. I absolutely agree. And I think, back to what you're saying, having strong role models and also having the opportunity to create a conversation and include everyone in it, not just for 1 month, but throughout the whole year, is extremely important. So thank you both for that. And now I'm going to pass this actually over to Laurie to kind of bring us into the next topic. So go ahead, Laurie.
Thanks, Jeanette. So this year's campaign theme for International Women's Day is Break the Bias, Imagine a Gender Equal World. Anita, what does break the bias mean to you, and how can organizations foster equality in the workplace?
I'd actually like to continue a bit of what Meera talked about the importance of breaking the bias in childhood. So I'd like to focus on how to break the bias in ways that we as women can help remove the foundations of that bias in childhood. For example, we need to go out of our way to influence girls to embrace STEM education. We should make it socially cool to pursue science and math and engineering. I think if we start early enough, then that will help to ensure that we eventually break the bias.
Great, thank you. I totally agree. And Meera, do you have anything else that you want to add? What does break the bias mean to you? And is there any additional things that corporations can do to foster more inclusivity in the workplace?
Yeah, I think one of the things I was reading, like a lot of articles, because a lot of people were reaching out to me, hey, what does it mean? Our brain is biased, right? If you look at that, like whether it is taking shortcuts or doing things, we are always biased. When we see people of our own color, of our own race, we always feel that it is there in our brain. So one of the things that I have seen over the past so many years that we are having all of these training and everything else, it hasn't worked, right? The just having that training and saying, go through this. I have heard many say, I just clicked through all of those and then finished the training. Like if it was supposed to be 30 minutes, I finished it in my 5 minutes. I'm like, okay. So clearly those training is not working. Our brain has somehow wired into all of those biases. So it is especially hard for women. So one of the key things that I keep telling is, no, whatever industry it is, right? It's not just in our industry that we see this bias. We see it every day, whether it is within home, whether it is when we go to the grocery store, whether as soon as we see a person, we put them in one hole and then say, yeah, this is what they might be, right? Over the last, I think 4 years, I have seen bias actually increase rather than decrease, right? So we keep telling all the women, hey, you need to get better every single day. You need to speak up, right? But then I give so many examples that I go through bias on a day-to-day basis. But then when you go to a place, expect nothing might happen, something new will happen, right? I still doubt whether it'll change for my generation and my daughter's generation. Maybe my grandkids, maybe it'll change in the next 20 years, but I don't think it'll change now.
Yeah, I think it's going to take some time.
Yep.
Whether bias, unconscious or not, it starts, and like you said, in the home and making those changes early on. So now that we've discussed the theme for this year, what advice would you give to women in the tech field who are thinking about exploring opportunities to continue to break the bias? You both mentioned starting in the home. Are there things outside of the home, maybe within work itself, that they should be considering, or things that they can do? Or maybe there's networking events and things that will help them kind of foster their skills. Mm-hmm. I'll start with you, Anita.
My advice to young women in entering the tech field is really to not only expand your technical skills, but use those social skills that a lot of women have to further advance your technical skills. So for example, you're taking a technical course and you need to take technical courses. You should also engage with the students and with the professors. A lot of students and professors may be a little bit uncomfortable in being social, but they welcome somebody who will reach out to them. And so I think since women, and I don't want to make too many generalizations, but a lot of women are more sociable, use that to your advantage, and you'll find that you will increase your technical expertise as well as your network of contacts by speaking up in a class. Also, go to meetups. Meetups are really valuable places to increase your network and increase your expertise, your technical expertise. And then there are conferences, both virtual conferences as well as in-person conferences. when you go to those places, don't sit in the back of the room. Ask questions in those venues. And as a result, you will go further along your technical path and your path towards getting better jobs because you're going to meet more people. So that's a short bit of advice.
Great, thank you. And Meera, is there anything else you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, I think one of the things on top of everything that Anita mentioned, I would like to add was before the pandemic, it was challenging for women to be in this in this industry, right? Whether it's the technology industry, because they had to travel, they had to go to offices. It was a huge challenge. But then one of the nice things about the pandemic was we came to know that they can actually work from home very efficiently. So for all the women that talk to me, I tell them, yeah, in the beginning, it was, I myself never imagined that my job, I could continue my job without traveling the world, but then I survived. So I tell them that now is the time for all of you to get to in this industry, whether it's the information security industry or the cyber security industry or just technology, because companies are willing to hire women now because they know that you don't have to go to the office to be productive. You can work from home. You can have that work-life balance. So for all the women who are listening to this webcast, I would say this is the right time for you to reach out to your mentors, reach out to people on LinkedIn or Twitter that you know, tell them, hey, this is the skill I have. I want to work, intern at companies like Synopsys, where you will be able to learn a lot of those skills. And you don't have to leave the four walls of your home now. That is the biggest thing that should drive women to get into this industry now. The four walls of your home now, that is the biggest thing that should drive women to get into this industry now.
Yeah, and that's great. And I agree, with, what you were saying, and then also back to what Anita was talking about, just how really taking advantage of networking opportunities and meetups and just keeping your connections really close, especially while we're, working in these different environments. With that, I just want to say thank you both so much for joining this panel interview. Really appreciate having you both and joining Laurie and I for International Women's Month with Synopsys Software Integrity Group. We had a great time speaking with you guys and, learning more about your experiences in the tech realm, as well as different advice you can give to people who are looking to get into a career with tech, and learning more about how we can break the bias. I really appreciate your time and thank you again.
Thank you for inviting us.